Greetings from the Circuito de Jerez. We came here to the grandstands to see a little bit of what the fans might enjoy this weekend. And there is a lot to enjoy this weekend because we are facing the penultimate round of the 2025 EUROCUP-3 season. And of course, as you, I'm sure, well aware of, we have a title fight that could be resolved in a couple of days. That is, of course, the possible title for Mattia Colnaghi, who is our championship leader. His lead is very, very solid. And of course, he has the opportunity, depending on the points that he scores, to become our newest EUROCUP-3 champion. If that is not to happen, that depends, of course, on his rivals, Valerio Renicella, Ernesto Rivera, and potentially as well Kasper Stuka, who have been the strongest drivers, aside from the Italian-Argentinian during the whole season, and who, of course, will try to delay this title celebration to Barcelona, if at all possible. What's clear, though, after last time out in SPA-FRANCORCHAMPS, is that Campos Racing has reacted. The team is definitely in a strong position, and coming back to Spain, that gives them a little bit of an edge that could potentially throw a spanner in the works. So if you want to enjoy the last couple of rounds of the season, that means 4 races ahead of us, 1 possible champion. The party's served.
And what a way to get into it. It is the penultimate round of the EUROCUP-3 Championship here at the Circuit of Jerez, where we found ourselves last in the Winter Championship. We now find ourselves in the thick end of the action of this season. And what a season it has been. Mattia Colnaghi, the driver at the front of the championship, and the driver that could walk away with the championship crown by the end of this weekend. All he needs is a perfect weekend on his part, and he needs to pray that his competitors close in behind him don't have as good of a weekend of results that he does as well. But we'll have to wait until that checker flag flies on Sunday to see if we can crown a new victor in the EUROCUP-3 Championship. But MP Motorsport have a lot on their hands this weekend. For Mattia Colnaghi, the question is, does he go all out for this championship, or is it damage limitation? Does he take home a good haul of points and just make sure that he's set nice for Montemelo for the final round of the championship going into there? But let's not focus on the final round just yet, as we have the penultimate round at heart right here. And as qualifying has just been concluded for the first race of this weekend, we will find ourselves with Enzo Tarvinichko on pole. Well, initially, it was Kasper Stuka who found himself on pole position, but after an incident out in Spa, which gave him a 5-place grid penalty for a crash with Valerio Renicella on the first lap of the race, he now finds himself down in 6th position on the starting grid. The driver with the lap record around here, which was set in the Winter Championship last time that EUROCUP-3 visited the Circuit of Jerez, he set a 39.7. We'll have to find out if he is able to beat that time this time round. And I'm sure we will wait and see what is able to unfold. We are going to go down to our trackside correspondence. Obviously, a lot has happened in qualifying here. Mattia Colnaghi, big talk of the weekend. Can he bring home the championship, Alex? It's going to be a good question and one that needs to be answered.
Well, this is the big question, of course, that we need to wait to see what happens today, and I think more especially tomorrow, Kai. We know, of course, that there's a few things that are interesting to notice. He's starting from P3. That's maybe not the best place to start from, but you have to consider that the two drivers ahead of him on the grid are not championship rivals. So that is, by default, the best position to start from, because Valerio Renicella, Kasper Stuka, Ernesto Rivera are all behind. And some of them are quite far behind. Remember that the main threat for the championship comes from Valerio Renicella, the Italian, and as long as Mattia Colnaghi scores 8 more points throughout the weekend than his teammate, that is grounds to become a champion before we even get to Barcelona. We cannot have that result still today. That is mathematically impossible, so we're not looking into that. But we could leave things well on track for tomorrow. So that's the first point to note. The second one, though, is that we have two drivers from the first row who have not yet won this season. So we could look at the possibility of expanding even more that amazing record we've seen this year. I think it is 8 different race winners so far. We could have a 9th today. And considering that the first 2 drivers on the grid haven't won, we could have a repeat tomorrow. We could even find ourselves in this weekend with a 10th race winner. That would be crazy.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Alex, already 8 race winners this season. That just shows how competitive the grid has been this season. The amount of drivers that have been able to get into the mix as well. And it's all down to the variety of circuits as well. This one, Circuit of Jerez, we've seen it before, 4.4 kilometers and 15 corners. It is home to action on 2 and 4 racing wheels. Very similar into the likes of Circuit of Assen, Alex. So what should we expect from these drivers going around here?
Yes, it is very similar in that regard, that it is a circuit more well known for probably two-wheel racing, but the reality is that the character of the circuit is completely different from what we saw at Assen. Assen, it is fundamentally a very quick circuit, where the lack of overtaking opportunities is more due to the lack of strong braking points. We do have some of them here in Jerez. In fact, the biggest reason for the lack of overtaking, the usual lack of overtaking here, is because there's not enough quick sections for these cars. So you might still have some drivers using that late braking point at the back straight. That's probably the best point. Maybe on turn 15, last corner of the track, that could also be an option. Turn 1, of course. But beyond that, it's tricky. You should force a rival to make a mistake. So very similar to Assen in the sense that it is fundamentally a two-wheel circuit in many ways. But we cannot also forget that this is a historic circuit for motorsport, for Formula One. How could we even forget that 1997 Formula One World Championship finale between Michael Schumacher and Jacques Villeneuve? So first win for Mika Häkkinen as well. So there's been some historic moments in Formula One. So four wheels also have to claim their spot here in Jerez, and that's why also EUROCUP-3 is perfectly justified in having some pretty historic races potentially.
Of course, a lot of big names have circulated around this track as well, as you've just mentioned there, Alex. But we've spoke about our championship leader of Matteo Colnaghi, but I want to have a look at the drivers in 2nd and 3rd in the championship. Renicella and Ernesto Rivera as well. Only 4 points separating the 2 drivers in the championship. Obviously, a very close battle. So what should we expect there, Alex, as there is still time on the clock for those 2 drivers to figure themselves out?
That's definitely another of the big stories of the weekend. We know that probably Valerio Renicella has been the most solid driver throughout the season. Out of everyone, in fact, even compared to Mattia Colnaghi, because he had always been on the points up until Spa. We know that he's a driver that he's not very prone to mistakes. That will help him on the last few rounds of last few races of the season. But we know that Ernesto Rivera is very, very quick when he's on his day, when everything is fitting, when everything makes him feel right. He's pretty much unbeatable. It's a different story today. Ernesto Rivera is starting from a little bit further behind, so that should favor Valerio Renicella a little bit more. But there's a race tomorrow, and there's 2 more in Barcelona. So I would say that nothing should be decided here. And at least in terms of runner-up positions, that'll have to wait until Barcelona. We're hoping as well that Mattia Colnaghi has to wait for Barcelona because we want as much excitement as we can. And if we have to wait until the last races, that's even more exciting. But we know that it's probably going to go down to the race tomorrow if everything goes the way it's been over the past few rounds.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, we want to see that racing action from an outsider's perspective. But as a driver, Matteo Colnaghi, he's going to want to wrap up the championship this round. Or will he? That's my question to you there. You know, obviously, it's a difficult position that Colnaghi finds himself in right now. He knows he's secure for his next season, moving up. But does he want to just get a nice haul of points and set himself up nice for the last round in Barcelona, Alex? Or does he want to go all out and want to go for that championship win?
Absolutely. I'm sure that he wants to take that risk and take that win today if he can, and take another one tomorrow if he's capable of. And if he gets to Barcelona and he takes 2 more, that's definitely on his plans. Why? Well, drivers don't like to lose, first of all, and that applies to everyone. But when you belong to the Red Bull Junior Team program, you have a need to do these things because there's a certain Dr. Helmut Marko watching over you, and you need to convince him, and you need to convince the whole team of experts at Red Bull, because you need to let them know that you are a valid talent for Formula One. Mattia Colnaghi has shown that speed, has shown that resilience, has shown a very good head on over his shoulders, keeping his calm in not necessarily easy situations, and that, I think, it's probably what's impressed Red Bull the most so far. But nothing beats results. It doesn't matter if you have a great head on your shoulders if the results are not there. And results means, can I win today? Then I should go for the win. So I think we will see Mattia Colnaghi going for that, especially because he has that immediate future secured for next year with MP Motorsport as well in FIA Formula 3, which is a good step forward, and it is a promising position to be in for 2026. And of course, he will want to do that with as much confidence and as much poise as possible. So I expect him to go for it. But there's a caveat, which is we have 2 other Red Bull Junior Team drivers in the first row. So he cannot exactly be too aggressive with his stable mates. Not teammates, but, you know, sort of teammates.
No, of course. There's always a little bit of camaraderie going on between the drivers there. But let's take away back from the front of the grid. Let's go back to a name of Alex Abgazava, a driver as of recent has been very, very impressive with his results and his pace that he's been putting on display in his EUROCUP-3 campaign. And what do you think we should expect from him this weekend? Obviously, last time out in Jerez, we saw a retirement last year after maybe a bit of a rash incident, maybe moving into an overtake a little bit earlier than he should have been thinking about. So a retirement last time out on this circuit. Alex Abgazava, his pace and his results have just came on monumental amounts as of recent, Alex. So what should we expect, and will that incident be playing on his mind?
It's been a tricky season so far, with lots of ups and downs for Alex Abgazava. We know that, again, it's a similar case to Ernesto Rivera. When he's comfortable, he can be quick and he can fight with pretty much anybody. And that experience from last year puts him in a different position compared to the rookies, because he's been here with this car more than the others. So, of course, that should help him more than anything else. I don't think that last year's incident would be something that he will repeat in his mind like a movie. But I'm sure that he will use that information to try and avoid any similar incidents. That said, I wouldn't say he's necessarily one of the big favorites this weekend, but he's been known to surprise us every now and then. So I say, why not? That said, we have to consider that Campos is being perhaps a little bit more competitive than MP Motorsport this weekend. So there's that to keep in mind. There's a reason why we have those Campos cars in the first row, and even with Kasper Stuka, who was the quickest guy, also from that team. So we have that little bit of an advantage for Campos. So Alex Abgazava might find it a little bit difficult to recover, especially on a track, as we were mentioning just now, where overtaking might be tricky. So that means you have to get a good start. If you get a good launch, you might be onto something. If you get a bad launch or you just don't improve your positions, you don't want to necessarily risk it too much unless you have everything secured. As far as we know, he does not necessarily have everything secured for next year. So he needs to balance it out. How will he do it? If I knew, I'd probably be a rich man. Clearly I am not, so I think I'm just waiting to see what happens.
But you obviously love to bet your vegetables, Alex. So maybe you're rich in the food department. We'll have to wait and see. But as our eyes and ears on the ground, as of always, as of every weekend, is there any stories, any talk of the paddock that's going on down there, Alex, that us as the viewers should know about going into this weekend?
Yes, actually, there's one thing that's been pretty important, I would say. We had actually this morning the first or the last practice session, which was surprisingly or not, once you know the data, has been substantially quicker than the qualifying. This is not usual. As all racing fans know, qualifying is the time when you have the fastest laps of the weekend, especially the qualifying tomorrow when they will have had a little bit more running. But the truth is that the temperature has been increasing dramatically during the day. It was pretty cold this morning, or pretty cool this morning, and as you know, engines tend to run much better on cool conditions. They run faster. Tires did not lose that much grip, so in the end what happened is that the qualifying session was just too hot for the engines to get as much performance as they had in the morning. That has continued to be the case up until now. Now it's the hottest we had the whole day, and as you can probably notice thanks to my hair, and this is why I keep it long, just so that you can notice the wind. The wind has picked up, and we're having conditions that are a bit more similar to what we had yesterday. Not as windy as it was yesterday, but closer to that as opposed to what we had this morning. Teams will have had to adjust that a little bit of the settings. Drivers will have to keep that in mind, especially on the braking points. So those are all small details, but on a race, it all matters. And that's probably the biggest difference that we've had since the morning, because that's what teams had and what they used to set up their cars, and that's now changed completely. So if anything, this is data for tomorrow as well. So keep that in mind, because tomorrow's race might be maybe a bit closer to that.
As you mentioned there, Alex, obviously the temperature of the actual circuit and the air temperature increasing higher and higher, and people having issues with engines possibly overheating as well. Now, with this circuit being a high downforce circuit as well, that's going to be a load of pressure on the cars and on the tires themselves as well. Alex, do you think there's going to be a possibility of us seeing any reliability issues there?
I mean, we know how high technology these machines are, but even then we know that they are usually pushed to their limits. So there is always a possibility of something happening. Generally, these cars have proven themselves to be generally quite reliable. So in that sense, it's not that we're expecting anything major to happen. But what we know is that they're not necessarily free. That is to say, I don't think there's going to be any more engine troubles than, for example, in Spa or in Assen, where it was probably more comfortable compared to today. But it's definitely not a thing that one should discount, because higher temperatures, engines don't like to be running higher temperatures. This is also why we might have a chance to show it when the cars come to the grid, but when they stop the cars on the grid, you have these high ventilators that they just plug into the radiators, because you want to keep those engines as cooled as possible. And teams are very good at doing that. So in that sense, yes, they will probably keep the cars, stop them as soon as possible. That's important, because then you can just put those fans and keep the temperatures as low as possible. Other than that, you know, motorsport. We've seen things happen. They can happen any weekend.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, that's another thing where the big names and the big teams come in with a little bit of an advantage, having that extra data, not just in EUROCUP-3, but in other forms of motorsport, being able to lean on that data, knowing where their car is within that optimal operating window. So we'll have to see if that plays a bit of a factor coming into the race. But penultimate round of the season, a lot to keep an eye on, and a lot of drivers that will be looking to prove themselves in this field as well. Who is going to be your driver to watch for the weekend, Alex, as there will be a lot of drivers trying to push forward if they didn't have the qualifying they would have hoped for?
Well, honestly, I have been pretty impressed recently with Enzo Tamarini's. You remember that he had a blast of a race in SPA-FRANCORCHAMPS with that recovery that was just out of this world, and he has been quick in qualifying. We know, once again, he's one of those guys who can be devilishly quick when he's comfortable, and he seems to be today. Jerez is not the easiest place to overtake. If he has a good start and he keeps that good pace that we've seen so far, to me, he's the clear favorite for the win. But we know that Jules Caranta, starting from second place, he has had a very unlucky season, and he wants that win to get him that confidence back. So for sure, those two probably just from off the starting positions are the favorites. If I had to bet my vegetables, because I may not be rich, but I want to be rich in health, I need to bet for Enzo Tarmanicol. And also that would be pretty exciting because he has proven to be an exciting driver to watch.
Yeah, 100% agree with you on that one. Enzo Tarmanicol has always been a force on this grid, and finally finding himself on that pole position once again has a good chance at getting his first win of the season. But it's not just drivers' names that are looking to prove themselves. It's also teams. Technicar now find themselves on the EUROCUP-3 grid for this round. And what should we expect from them this weekend, Alex? Obviously, being a new entry, it's going to be difficult so late on.
It is late in the season. That's a steep learning curve. Of course, the team knows the environment from their Formula 4 Spanish Championship experience, but it is a big learning curve. So I think it's not reasonable to expect any big results from them. They're here to basically learn a little bit how everything works, to get that experience, to get that mileage, which is always valuable. And this will be valuable for both team and driver. And hopefully this is something that they can use also for the future, because we know that the 2026 season is not so far off. It will be a big season for them, joining, of course, the EUROCUP-3 grid full-time. And to that, you always need to get experience. And what's best to just get that experience as soon as you can. So that last couple of rounds for races, you know, it's nice to see teams who take on that challenge mid-season. Not everyone is brave enough to do it, and I have to commend them for that, because it's a good thing. It shows that the grid continues to grow, the championship continues to grow. For those who may not be keeping up with the news, we have a new machine, new chassis, new engines for the 2026 season. Very exciting lineup of teams as well. So it's looking to be a big year for EUROCUP-3 as they enter the fourth season next year.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one indeed, and Technicar lining themselves up on the grid for the penultimate round. We are finally seeing the cars now make their way towards the grid and onto their starting lineup as well. Unfortunately, there has been a little bit of a delay in order because of the previous race just overrunning slightly, so there will be a few minutes delay here for the starting action of the EUROCUP-3 grid, and a lot going on. But anyone that's watching along at home in the YouTube stream or any other stream platforms, make sure to get your predictions and your comments in the chat as well, as I'll try to keep an eye on as many as possible and maybe even read out some of the most interesting calls as well. But Alex, down on the grid, cars are now lining up as well. What can you see from down there? Anything to note? We're currently looking at the Red Bull Juniors cars down at the front of the grid. Obviously, the number 83 of Jules Caranta starting second. It's going to be an interesting weekend for the Frenchman. Obviously, we've seen that he has the raw pace to be up at the front of the grid, Alex, but not quite taken the cherry just yet of a race win. What should we expect from him this race?
Yes, it's been a tricky season for him. He's shown speed, but he has had way too many penalties, usually for track limits. That they're a constant presence here in EUROCUP-3, and just also keeping an eye on those tires that we've seen. New tires for the most part. Of course, they've done that scrubbing already during the qualifying session and now as well. And so we're watching Enzo Tarmanicol in first place. We have here Jules Caranta, who, as you said, needs to do that little bit of a step up if he wants to get that sweet first win. But the challenge is big because it comes from his own teammate. I have on my left as well one of the big stories of the weekend, at least in visual terms, because we've talked about Caranta, Red Bull Junior Team driver. We've talked about Enzo Tarmanicol, Red Bull Junior Team driver. That was from the beginning of the season. But just over there, a few meters away, Mattia Colnaghi is using for the first time those Red Bull colours. So gone is the orange and black of the MP Motorsport usual livery, and in is the new dark blue, navy blue, red and yellow from the Red Bull squad. So that's why we have that triple threat from the Red Bull squad in Jerez, and that's why they look like teammates, even though technically only two of them belong to the same squad, that being Caranta and Tarmanicol from Campos.
Of course, well, we'll have to wait and see if those new Red Bull colours are a new sense of look for Matej Karnagi at the front of the grid. But in the YouTube chat, we have Makic's #1 fan saying that Makic Gladish is going to win the race, Alex. What do you have to say about that from your perspective?
I would like to see Matej Gladish being at the top of the grid, being fighting with these guys. We saw in the Spanish Winter Championship that he was quick enough to be a challenger. He had an amazing start of his EUROCUP-3 adventure, but somehow things just haven't clicked for him. He's had tons of issues. Sometimes he's been quick. Most of the times he has not been maybe up there where we were expecting him, where he was expecting himself to be. I hope that he can surprise us a little bit and jump a few places. Why not? But more than anything, I'm just glad that he was not injured in SPA-FRANCORCHAMPS, because I remember when he got out of the car and that looked pretty nasty in terms of, that steering wheel whiplash that he got on his wrist. And thankfully that was nothing in the end. But I have to feel for him, because he was one of the favorites probably going into the start of the season. And things have changed just in a few months. Goes to show you just how tough motorsport can be. One day you're a favorite, just a few months later, almost nobody's thinking about you as a possible race winner.
Yeah, there's a lot to keep an eye on there for Makej Gladish. As you mentioned, he was a favourite coming into this season with a lot of success in the past. Obviously, last year in the F4 Spanish Championship, he came third and also was the rookie champion. So unfortunate to see that he's a little bit further down than he would have expected. But team and personnel are now clearing the grid. Alex, will thank you once again for your insights before the race. I'm sure we'll catch up with you after the race, but we do get ready for racing action once again. Alex gave us his predictions, and that was Enzo Tarvinichko to be up at the front of the grid. I'm going to say that Kasper Stuka is a name that we need to keep an eye on. He's starting down on 6th on the grid, but a very rich history around this circuit there for Stuka. Lap record last time out at this circuit in the EuroCup-3 machinery. It was a 1:37.979 was the lap time that he set. He actually beat that in qualifying today. So he was able to beat his lap record. Obviously, it wasn't in the race, so it wouldn't have counted. It was a 1:37.885 that was set in qualifying for Kasper Stuka. But as we mentioned, a 5-place grid penalty demotes him down to 6th after that incident on the first lap of Spa in race 2 with Valerio Rinicella, which put him out of the race. A lot of names flooding into the chat here. We do have Noah thinking that Jules Caranta can walk away with his first victory of the season, and there is a good chance of it. The Frenchman has been on top form this weekend throughout all practice sessions and the qualifying as well. Now he just has to race to prove himself as well. Let's see what Jules Caranta can do from the front row of the grid. As we're talking about the Red Bull Junior driver right now, that is 7th in the championship. Obviously, the rookie colours being on his car. In this season so far, he has taken home 2 podiums, but that 1 race win has just evaded him so far. So we'll have to see what he's able to do. He's got a 2nd position. He's gotten a 3rd position. All he has to do is find himself on the top step now. But it's a lot easier said than done here. And with 30 minutes plus 1 lap of racing action, there's a long time in front of us if he wants to make that work. Drivers making their way around the circuit now, heading into the final sector as we make our way around the final 8 turns towards the start-finish straight where we will line up ready for racing action. 3 Red Bulls there. That is Tarvinichko, Caranta, and Rinicella. Sorry, not Rinicella, that is Karnagi. The MP Motorsport in behind in 4th position is going to be Valerio Rinicella. Let's see if his luck can turn around from Spa. It was 2 DNFs last time out. Well, not a DNF the first time round, but it was a non-point score because of a problem. He pitted for wets when nobody else did. Then we saw the safety car, then the red flag. So there was no time for Valerio Rinicella to take advantage of those wet compounder tyres and try and gain back the time that he lost in the pit lane. So it was 22nd in the first race where he finished, and a retirement in the second race after an incident. So as we round the final corner, drivers will start to grid up ready for their standing start. And those Red Bull colours, I think it's fair to say, looking very menacing at the front of the field. Is it going to be a Red Bull Racing driver on top, or will we see a different colour strike the front? We'll have to wait and see. Valerio Rinicella in behind a field of the Red Bull cars. But as the back of the field now make their way around the final couple of corners and onto the grid, as we found Orizinski and the Hellberg brothers as well right there in the LA Racing machine. This season, LA Racing have managed to take home their first podium as well, so great to see for them, and a successful haul of points that they've been able to take home this season. But in the Teams Championship, you can't take your eyes off what is MP Motorsport and Campos Racing as well. At the back of the grid, the green flag flies as it is all lights there to the gantry. 5 lights are on and it's lights out, and we are racing here. A little bit of a delayed start there from the front row, taking to the grass already as Konagi tries to scuff his way to the front, fighting through with his shoulders out. Very strong there. It looks like Konagi is already able to get himself to the front of the grid. We'll have to wait and see until they reappear into our picture, but it's a Red Bull Junior driver out in front. Oh, one car off in the background there, as that looked like one of the Santa Lock cars going very, very wide and off the circuit. We'll have to try and see what number that was on the machine. Couldn't quite catch that there. Yellow flags out in the first sector as the 2 Red Bull Junior drivers once again going side by side of Enzo Tarvanichko and Jules Caranta as we go down what is towards the second sector now into turn 6, as down the inside looking for the move. He's gonna get it done, and that's Tarvanichko down into second. Sorry, no, that's Caranta down into second. Oh, and there's the retirement. The retired car we were talking about, that was the number 10 off the field of Castillo. So Castillo, unfortunately, will have to retire from this race, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is a safety car. And it's very good timing that the safety car is called now, as Enzo Tarvanichko was just able to recover himself into the lead of the race. As we saw the battle raging between the 2 Campos teammates, Jules Caranta tried to put a bit of pressure on his teammate. The 2 rookie drivers were going side by side for the majority of the first and second sector. Off the line, we saw Matteo Carnaghi try to put in a bid for the race lead, as he had to take to the grass as he was forced off 3 wide down the straight. That was never going to work. And unfortunately, we did see one of the Santa Lot cars go off and wide, and that is going to be Castillo, the number 10, just beached in the gravel trap. And unfortunately, that does mean that safety car has been called and has been brought onto the circuit. So as we look at the field, as it's calmed down under the safety car, your current order is as follows. Enzo Tarvanichko still leads the race for now, but Jules Caranta will not make that easy off the safety car restart. And Matteo Carnaghi in third. Into the pit lane there goes one of the MP Motorsport machines. We'll have to try and see who that is, but maybe our trackside correspondent down in the pit lane can tell us what's happened there. One car in the pit lane, Alex. Do we have any idea what's happened down there? Maybe we will hear from Alex just a little bit later on. But as we're watching the replays here, apparently we do have Alex back down here. One of the MP Motorsport cars pulling into the pit lane. Alex, any idea what's happened there? Any issues with the car mechanically?
Hi, Guy. Yes, I can confirm that it's Cardenas who has just been brought into the pit, or he came with his own power into the pit, even though he's very, very far down the pit lane from where we are right now. But I was mostly just impressed with how we saw probably one of the starts of the season with Mattia Konagi, who was maybe not necessarily as successful as he had wished for, but I think that answers the question that we had before the race start, whether he would take the risk or not. I think he will.
Yeah, risk is all up in the air. And as you mentioned, Alex, Matteo Carnaghi completely taking to the grass there to try and find himself an early advantage and an early lead. Is this something that we should expect from Carnaghi for the rest of the race, Alex? Obviously, if it goes on like this, who knows what's going to happen?
Well, considering what we've seen, I can safely say that he's at least going to try it. Whether he's going to be successful, whether he's actually going to have a chance where he can actually do it, we will see. But when you have a driver just jumping to that chance with that much confidence, we'll see it. We'll definitely see it. And we know that Jerez is not an easy track to do it, but we know that it is possible. Those people who watched the past 2 seasons of EUROCUP-3 know that sometimes there is a possibility. You first need to cause a mistake on your rival, so you push them, you put them a little bit nervous, they go a little bit wide, they brake a little bit too late, and that's enough for you to get the chance. So I think he will. Now that said, as I said, I repeat, race is long, hopefully no more interruptions from here until the end. But yeah, I think it's looking pretty interesting.
Yeah, still a long way in front of us. Thank you very much, Alex, for your insights. But we are back and racing here. Green flag has flown as the drivers made their way over the start-finish line. And it looks like we are already getting back, stuck into the action as we see some of the Palau Motorsport cars getting stuck in and ready for racing. Alex Abcazava finds himself in behind Valeria Rennicella. James Agozzi in the background just made his way past Garrett Berry as we saw the Palau Motorsport car in the background make that move down the inside of the Santa Lock machine. But what a restart it was there from Enzo Tarvinichko as he finds himself breaking away, and Alex Abcazava under quite a bit of pressure here from what is going to be Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi trying to make his way through on the switchback. Can he get the drive out of the corner? His foot flat to the floor, and as we get to the apex, Abcazava is just able to hold on there in the KCL MP Motorsport machinery. But I can tell you now that battle is not done and dusted just yet, as he finds himself up 2 positions from his starting place. Alex Abcazava is on a nice little bit of a charge here, but he has a strong and long train in behind him. So one small mistake from him will be pounced on the opportunity from all the cars that are following in tail. But as we go down towards the start-finish straight, once again through the final corner, we find our leader of Enzo Tarvinichko. No issues so far out in front for him. He had a little bit of pressure early on from Jules Caranta and Matteo Carnaghi, the other 2 Red Bull Junior drivers trying to fight their way to the front of the pack. But in the background, we go racing once again. Agozzi is under a bit of pressure. Sorry, no, that's Garrett Berry under pressure once again. But this time from Moreno. Moreno on the switchback. He finds the inside line and he finds the maneuver. So Moreno gets himself up to 12th position, as well as Garrett Berry, in the space of 2 laps, has fell down towards 2 cars as well. As we'll get a replay here of the race restart, I think this is. We'll keep an eye on the MP Motorsport machines of what was Alex Abcazava on the green flag here. This is going to be the battle off the start line, I think. Yes, that's Garrett Berry having to go very defensive down that home straight, as we see James Agozzi straight on the attack in that Palau Motorsport machine. So those 2 drivers clashing heads already, as we see what is going to be Maciej Gladic carving his way through the field as he gets his way up to 11th right now. He did start in 10th, but unfortunately off the start there, Maciej Gladic did drop down a few positions. So just trying to find his way back through the field and making progress by the minute as well. Out in front, it's still Enzo Tarvinichko setting some great lap times as well. Not quite close to what we saw from Kasper Stuka. Stuka, what's happened there on the start for him? As we look a little bit further down the grid, maybe involved in that incident with Castillo in the Santa Lock machine. But Kasper Stuka, yes, he was a little bit out of position from the start, down in 6th, but he put himself in pole position. Now he's down in 22nd. So what happened to Kasper Stuka there off the start as he finds himself tumbling down the order. My only guess could be that issue with Castillo on the first lap. As we have a look at this battle off the restart once again, that was the move there from the number 7, making his way through. That was Maciej Gladisz making his way past Garrett Berry. So there we see that was Maciej Gladisz making his way past Garrett Berry as the Palau Motorsport driver just losing a couple positions lap after lap, unfortunately. So we keep an eye on that train, the big pack in the midfield, as that's where the battle for positions is really starting to rage. But out in front, it's all stringed out a little bit right now, as Tarvinichko has pulled quite a comfortable gap back to Caranta in second position. It's about a second that separates the two Campos drivers right now. Matteo Carnaghi just about hanging on by the skin of his teeth right now in third position, as he is a little bit further back, 1.6 seconds off the leader, 8 tenths off the back of Caranta as well. But Valerio Rinicella, as tumbling down the order, James Agozzi finds himself all the way falling down. I wonder what's happened there in the background. An issue for James Agozzi, or was it just a timing issue? Yes, it was. So, false alarm there on my timing screen. James Agozzi was tumbling down the order, but as he crosses the line, it resets into 10th. As down the inside, trying it there, not gonna get it done just yet, as we see Moreno under a bit of pressure right now, trying to get the move done on Garrett Berry. Let's see what Berry is able to do out on the field. There is our top 4. Then Alex Abkazava, followed in behind by Emerson Fittipaldi, who was trying to put a lot of pressure on earlier, tried the overtake on the switchback, but wasn't able to get it done just in that moment. Out on the track, let's keep an eye on these drivers here. The number 7 of Maciej Gladisz, that is the driver who we saw have cheers in the chat from people wanting him to win the race. I feel like a win may be a little bit out of the reach there for Maciej Gladisz, but definitely a point-scoring finish is on the cards as he finds himself in 11th right now. Around this circuit of Jerez, it is very difficult to overtake. It's a tight and twisty circuit, so one that separates the great drivers from the good, as you need to be on your A game at all moments when you're making your way around this circuit, as one small mistake will lose you a handful of time here to your competitors around you. 15 corners for the drivers to tackle over the course of a lap, and 4.4 kilometers as we make our way around, resulting in, on average, around a 1 minute 40 lap time. That has been broken by Matteo Carnaghi as he sets a 1:39.992, which isn't quite the lap record which we've seen from Stuka in the winter series of a 37.9. So we are 2 seconds off the lap record that was set by him around here. But we do edge ourselves up towards the halfway point in this race. 17 minutes and 45 seconds remaining on the clock, so still plenty of time for these drivers to sort themselves out in their finishing order. And Matteo Carnaghi, I'm sure, will be getting a little bit restless out there in third, as he had a good opportunity to get himself into the lead early on in this race off the line, but he's going to have to settle for third right now as he finds himself with daylight between him and Jules Caranta. Valerio Rinicella nowhere near in behind him, fourth, as Alex Abkazava, probably the only driver out of the MP Motorsport machines right now under a bit of pressure, as Emerson Fittipaldi is still trying to find himself getting into that top 5 point scoring position. As we still make our way around, we keep an eye on the MP Motorsport machines and also the Red Bull Junior machines as well. As round in the final corner, that is the 83. That's still our driver in second position, Jules Caranta, just building up the attack. What he'll be doing as a driver, he'll be sitting in that second position, watching Enzo Tarvinichko in front and analysing where his weak points are. He'll be driving this car thinking, where am I faster than Tarvinichko? Where can I take advantage of any time lost of the number 8 in front of me? And where can I set myself up for a very nice attack and a chance of a race win? But the way that it's going right now, as we mentioned before the race, and as Alex very much pointed out as well, we do have a good chance of there being a 9th race winner of the season here in the EUROCUP-3 Championship, which was already broken with 8 race winners. But we look for a 9th, and it will come in either the form of Enzo Tarvinichko and Jules Carranza, unless Matteo Cornaghi has anything to say about that. Rinicella currently sitting in 4th. He would have been hoping for a podium position by the end of this race, and it's very much still possible with over half the race remaining. But we'll have to wait and see, as obviously anything is a positive in comparison to the SPA-FRANCORCHAMPS weekend that we saw last time out, where he wasn't able to score any points over the course of the weekend. And for MP Motorsport, that was a big decision to pull him into the pit lane in that first race, to pull him in for those wet tyres. And it was just very, very unfortunate timing, as soon as he came in for those wet tyres, there was a safety car called, and that just means that he lost even more time than he could have if he had have waited just 1 or 2 more laps. As soon as that safety car was called, safety car was dropped and a red flag was issued immediately, obviously for the driver's safety, unfortunately meaning that the race was cut short by about 6 minutes. Out in front, what was a 1-second gap is now cut down to 0.4 of a second. Jules Carranza has managed to find some pace and picked up bags, and he is now departing onto the back of Enzo Tarvinichko's machine as well. The 2 Red Bull Junior teammates, the 2 Campos Racing teammates as well, I'm sure very acquainted with each other. But Enzo Tarvinichko out in front. He's looking for his first race win. Currently 9th in the standings is Tarvinichko, but a very long and historic motorsport background as well, as in the 2024 Formula 4 Winter Series, he was able to compete in that and the F4 Spanish Championship last year. So most of the tracks on this calendar, one that Tarvinichko is very used to making his way around. But he finds himself in the EUROCUP-3 campaign this time round in the Formula Regional machines. So maybe setting himself up for a big move next year. Obviously, it's all speculation until deals are done. The only driver that we are confirmed will be moving away next year is obviously Matteo Cornaghi, who will be racing in the FIA Formula 3 Championship next year. Those Red Bull Junior colours will be doing him proud and definitely helped him get to that position. But his racing talent is something that cannot be ignored, as he finds himself in a position to take home the championship in the penultimate round. Down the home straight we go, and out in front, it's still Tarvinichko, who was able to eke out a little bit more time between him and Carranza. It was down to 4 attempts, now back up to 6. And it hasn't been an easy race there for Garrett Berry. We can see the number 18, who unfortunately has just been under so much pressure lap after lap. First it was James Zagotzi, then it was Maciej Gladish, and now he finds Moreno in the Palau Motorsport machine behind the number 18 in the Santa Lot. Into the second sector up at the front of the grid. Jerez, obviously a very, very historic circuit. A lot of racing has went down around this track. It initially opened in 1985 to host the first international event of motorcycle racing in March of 1996. It was then very quickly followed up by the first ever Formula 1 Spanish Grand Prix at the circuit of Jerez in April of 1986. So multiple big championships have made their way around this circuit, and obviously a lot of lap records to be held, one of them going the way of Kasper Stuka. So already finds himself with a name in the history books of the circuit of Jerez. Unfortunately, not looking like he's going to be able to do anything to walk away with a victory in this race, as we'll see what can happen here. Stuka, has he managed to make up any positions? Yes, he has. So he was down into 22nd off the start of the race. Now finds himself up at 19th. So 3 places have been recovered from what I can only assume was being involved in that incident on lap 1, which found Castillo retiring from the race. As I don't see any other way that Kasper Stuka could have found himself tumbling down the order like that. Our top 3 still remaining the same, with the fastest lap going the way of our championship leader, Matteo Carnaghi. We're talking about getting a 9th winner in this race, but Matteo Carnaghi, he already has 4 wins in this championships and 8 podiums to his name. A 9th podium looking very much set for the MP Motorsport driver, as he's just setting purple sector after purple sector, inevitably leading to fast laps. So as we watch him light up the timing tower, it really is only a moment of time until we see him close down the gap to Jules Caranta in 2nd right now. But making our way through the mid-pack, everyone seeming to string out a little bit more than we saw earlier on. Alex Abgazava there was under quite a bit of pressure from Emerson Fittipaldi Jr. Earlier on in this race, we saw those 2 drivers going side by side for quite a few corners. But the battle seems to have tamed down quite a bit, as Abgazava feeling no need to go defensive for the time being. And arriving onto the back of the 2 of them is Ernesto Rivera, a driver which found himself in the lead of the championship at the beginning of the season and looking like a contender. Rivera finds himself 3rd in the championship right now, only 4 points off the back of Valerio Rinicella. So a very heated battle for 2nd in the championship going on right now between Rinicella and what is Ernesto Rivera as well. MP Motorsport and Campos Racing going to blows as per usual, the 2 big names of this EuroCup-3 campaign in the Teams Championship. So it's no surprise to see their drivers up at the front end. In terms of the team standings, it's not really as close as we would have been hoping for, with MP Motorsport just streaking such a large gap between them and Campos Racing. Campos Racing obviously having the home advantage for these last 2 races. The Spanish-based team will hopefully be able to take advantage of their extensive data, and they're looking to do so right now, with 2 of their drivers taking the top 2 spots. But it's looking like the overall championship is going to be a little bit far out of reach. There's currently 132 points that are separating MP Motorsport and Campos Racing at the front of the Teams Championship. And a great camera there on the start-finish straight, as you really get a sense of the speed of these drivers down the home straight. Obviously even faster when the drivers are utilizing their push-to-pass, but not really any need right now for push-to-pass to be used, as the number 55 of Valerio Rinicella is keeping an eye on the rear end of Matteo Carnaghi. Enzo Tarvinichko still has about a half a second buffer between him and the driver in behind. We're going very slowly. There is the number 24, Ernesto Rivera. Oh, that has to go down to commentator's curse. We were just saying that he was looking competitive on the back end of Fittipaldi and Abgazava, but pulling into the pit lane, this may be the 3rd retirement of the race. Not sure what the issue is there with Rivera. We didn't see him involved in an incident, sorry. So we can only assume that that is going to be a technical issue for Ernesto Rivera. And that is something that me and Alex did pick up on before the race, and did mention that with the track temperature and air temperature being so high, 42 degrees is the track temperature, 33 degrees is the air temperature. So a lot of data that will be getting fed back to the pit wall, and the last thing these teams want is a car breaking down. So mechanical issues could be something in play for this weekend that we might have to keep an eye on. And drivers will just have to negotiate with their racing machines to make sure that they're kept within the optimal operating window. Jules Caranta seems to be in a great operating window to try and get the move done on Enzo Tarvinichko. As we get down to the dreary end of this race, only 6 minutes remaining on the clock, where we find ourselves having a red flag in the first round of Spa. We see Jules Caranta peering down the rear end and the rear diffuser of Enzo Tarvinichko. Tarvinichko seemingly unbothered by his Campos teammate in behind, so not feeling the need or feeling the pressure either, as no mistakes have been made out in front just yet. I'm not going to try and curse Enzo Tarvinichko there, as well as we've already had Ernesto Rivera pull in to the pit lane to retire. This really has not been the year for Ernesto Rivera, as a lot of bad luck has struck his way, and maybe not enough good luck to balance it out. But that is something that does come hand in hand with racing and motorsport. Sometimes the racing gods are not in your favor, and unfortunate circumstances do come in your way. Ernesto Rivera, he's a very talented driver, though I'm sure he will be able to bounce back from this misfortune, as Enzo Tarvinichko still leads the way. 5 minutes on the clock, gap staying about the same. It was only 0.05 difference in the lap time between Enzo Tarvinichko and Jules Caranta. Caranta being the fastest of the two, but the fastest driver on the grid right now still being Matteo Carnaghi. Although, as we say that, Valerio Rinicella is getting closer and closer to the back end of the new Red Bull Junior colours. Valerio Rinicella, obviously a driver which is his second touring of the EUROCUP-3 championship. He did compete last year as well. Matteo Carnaghi finds himself a rookie. He competed in the Spanish F4 championship last year, which he was able to take home a nice little title from. Obviously winning the F4 Spanish championship. That time it was for the KCL MP Motorsport machine. This time being the main MP Motorsport machine. In the Winter Championship, he found himself second. And maybe in the main championship, he can find himself with another trophy to take home at the end of the season. Or could it be at the end of this round if things go his way? All he needs is to outscore Valerio Rinicella and Ernesto Rivera by 8 points each. This is through the final chicane. Oh, and a little bit of a tank slapper there coming out. And not the moment you would have been hoping for, putting himself into a world of trouble as the gap will tumble down there between Abgazava and Fittipaldi, as those two drivers find themselves very, very close indeed. As that was a big moment there going through the final chicane before the final corner. I'm surprised that we didn't see another off-the-road moment. Very good racecraft and driving on display to be able to recover that machine and not go off the circuit. As we go through right now, out in front right now, it's still Enzo Tarvinichko. Gap fluctuating between the top two. Unless something changes in these closing stages, I can't really see this going any other way than Enzo Tarvinichko. But Matteo Carnaghi doing exactly what he needs right now, and that is to take home 12 points towards his championship total. Sorry, not 12 points. He's currently taking home 15. It'll be 12 points going the way of Valerio Rinicella. And what that means is 3 points of damage has already been done. So if things stay the way that they are right now, what needs to happen is that Matteo Carnaghi outscores Valerio Rinicella by 5 points in tomorrow's race. 3 points damage has already been done, as Carnaghi will finish third and Rinicella will finish fourth if things stay the way that they are right now. So can he get those extra 5 points tomorrow? We'll have to wait and see, and trying to figure out what points total would have to happen for him to get that 5-point lead. Well, it could be very simple, as Matteo Colnaghi winning the race. And if Valerio Rinicella scores anywhere else, that does mean that Matteo Colnaghi will walk away with the championship tomorrow. All he needs to do is win the race, which is very much easier said than done. But he's already done it 4 times this season. Who's stopping him from doing it one more time? As with the current gap being extended by another 3 points, it's going to be 51 points that separates Matteo Colnaghi and Rinicella in the championship. As with 30 seconds ticking down on the clock just now. Out in front, it's still Enzo Tarvinichko from Jules Caranta, Matteo Colnaghi, Valerio Rinicella. It's going to be Alex Abgazava, Emerson Fittipaldi Jr., Jesse Carrasquedo, Kai Diriani, James Zagozzi, and Maciej Gladish has managed to get himself into a point scoring position in 10th. Around the final corner we go. Will it be one more lap or will it be 2 more? As we'll round the final bend and cross the line, the clock does strike 0 before we cross, which means this is the last lap of the first race of this EuroCup 3 penultimate weekend. Enzo Tarvinichko, he's done it for 30 minutes so far. He just needs to hang on for 1 more lap. But this is where Jules Caranta will get feisty, and he gets closer, ever so closer, to Enzo Tarvinichko in front of him. Push to pass is available if he's got any remaining there for the Frenchman in second position. Will he be able to utilize it to his advantage? Onto the back straight we go. Into the second sector and down towards turn 6. It doesn't look like the gap is changing much. A little bit of an attacking positioning there from Jules Caranta as he seemed to turn in a little bit earlier from Enzo Tarvinichko, maybe trying to unsettle his competitor on the apex, but nothing seems to faze the man out in front, looking for his first win of the season. It's looking to be quite a good start to his weekend for Enzo Tarvinichko. 2 podiums in his campaign so far. His best finish has been 3rd, so quite a nice upgrade to go from 3rd to 1st. And what a way to do it. Then a lights to flag finish. He had pressure earlier on. It was Colnaghi who tried to get the move done across the line, and Caranta who applied pressure before the final safety car. And into the final corner, Caranta tries it once more, but it's Enzo Tarvinichko who crosses the line for his first win of the EuroCup 3 season, making it 9 unique winners over the course of the year so far. The checker flag flies and all the drivers will now cross the line. It's Enzo Tarvinichko who takes home his first win. And it's Jules Caranta who falls short just once more. Caranta, his best finish before this was 2nd. He picks up a 2nd once again, but yet to strike gold just yet. There is still 3 more races of the season and 1 more race this weekend. So very much possible for the Frenchman, but he'll have to reset himself and get ready to go again tomorrow. Matteo Colnaghi, a very nice buffer that he finds himself with now. As he comes home in 3rd, 15 points will go his way. His competitor 2nd in the championship. Valerio Rinicella comes home with 12. As we mentioned, it was 8 points that Colnaghi has to outscore Rinicella by. So there's 3 ticked off your list. Just 5 more to go. And a race win from Matteo Colnaghi tomorrow could secure the crown on his head and find him the victor of the EuroCup 3 championship. It was the F4 championship last year. Can he make it EuroCup 3 this time round? With just 1 more race to go this weekend, it's very much possible. And we are eagerly awaiting that to happen. That's great to see the 2 Red Bull Junior teammates going side by side as they parade themselves around into the pit lane. Campos Racing 1-2. A home race for them, and they managed to topple the titan of MA Motorsport. So a nice little display there from the Campos Racing teammates as they pull around on their final lap side by side the whole way round. But we will peel off into the pit lane for what is going to be a very brief podium celebrations here for the drivers. It's the number 8 in the number 1 spot for the first time this season. There is the number 71, Matteo Carnaghi. Nice, good points buffer to go his way. He can't complain with that at all. He would have been hoping for the race win to make it his championship this time round, but he still has another race tomorrow to do the same. But there is the man who takes his first win of the season. He'll get out of the car, secure the steering wheel back on, and then the elations can take place. He celebrates on the front, and just look at how much that means to Enzo Tarvanichko as he'll go over and congratulate the Campos Racing team on what has been an emotional season. Tarvanichko, I'm sure, would have been hoping to find himself a little bit higher than 9th in the driver's standings, but 25 points going his way will definitely bump him all up the order just a little bit, and actually knocking on the door of a top 5 finish in the championship if he has a very strong last 3 races. Tarvanichko in these last 2 rounds could go from 9th to top 5 as the 2 teammates shake hands and embrace each other. Enzo Tarvanichko and Jules Caranta are top 2. It's a Campos Racing 1-2, a rookie 1-2 and a rookie podium. So with the celebrations continuing, someone there with the air horn to make what is going to be the atmosphere just that little bit better for the drivers, as a lot of emotions going on down there for the Campos Racing team as it sees Tarvanichko makes his way off to get weighed and get his way towards over there. We just saw Alex for a split second as he'll try and catch one of the drivers for a quick interview after what was a long race. Quite a straightforward race, I think it's fair to say. 30 minutes after those last few laps, it seemed like all the drivers just found their rhythm, and from there on you saw a bit of battling in the mid-pack from James Zagotzi and Maciej Gladish carving their way through. Garrett Berry unfortunately being the victim of that one. But down there it looks like we will have time for an interview, or we will have the replays as well. We'll have to figure out which one in which order it is. I think we're going to get the replays here first, as this is going to be the highlights from the race. There is the number 55 of Valerio Rinicella, but Alex is down there ready for a post-race interview as the celebrations continue. Alex, down to you for the post-race interviews.
Big celebrations here in Campos. Enzo Tarvanichko's first win of the season here in EUROCUP-3. That must mean a lot to you.
Yeah, I think it's been a very long season, and it's super rewarding to get a good result, especially in Jerez, near where I live. So very special, yeah.
And also, that's it's been the second half of the season you've been steadily improving. We also know that you race elsewhere, and maybe that win in UK has maybe bolstered your confidence, because the second half of the season for you has been completely different, and you're a change driver now.
Yeah, I think it was more about just learning more about myself, about the car, and just becoming a more mature person in general, in all aspects. So I think that's helping, obviously, to make more races. And as you can see, I think it's working quite well.
And now going specifically into this race, what a start. That must have been pretty stressful, having Mattia on the inside on that first corner. Did you expect him pretty much acting as a lawnmower?
I think I just didn't make the best start, but very well managed into T1, in my opinion. And I think that's where I won the race, pretty much. Just trying to be confident on the brakes, especially when the whole car is still quite cold. And yeah, went pretty well into T1, and then the rest of the race was just very hot.
Another one tomorrow and 2 more in Barcelona. What are the expectations for that?
Well, obviously you try and keep going with the same progress, but yeah, we'll just have to see. I'm very confident in Barcelona. Tomorrow is another opportunity to get good points, but right now I think we should look in the moment, and yeah.
Good job, enjoy it, and time to celebrate.
Thank you, thank you.
Our race winner for today, 9th winner of the season, Enzo Tarmariscu, who has been astounding, and you can hear the noise that the Campos team is making, because for them this means a lot, also for Enzo, who lives around these parts, and so he's very happy with that victory, and he said it better than I could have. 3 more races, 3 more opportunities, and he wants to grab them with both hands.
Of course, you can't blame him at all. He takes home his race win for the season, his first race win for the season, but unfortunately falling just a little bit short there, Jules Caranta, Alex. He tried his best, he put a lot of pressure on, but just not quite taking the cherry on top.
He can be very happy with what he's done today, Jules Caranta. It's been a long season as well for him. He's been less lucky than he would have wanted to be, but he's shown that resilience, which is a strong component of what makes a successful racing driver. He has another chance tomorrow. If he has another good qualifying tomorrow, why not? He could become, I said it before the race one, he could become the potential 10th winner of the season if he does a good race tomorrow. And so we have that opportunity to see it. For the time being, we have a new race winner. We have a triple presence for Red Bull Junior team drivers in this podium here in Jerez. And don't forget about it. We have a potential championship title for Mattia Colnaghi tomorrow. So lots to look forward to for Sunday.
A lot of stories that will take us into the racing action tomorrow. Alex, thank you very much for your time and your insights over the course of this race. But that does round it up there for race 1 of the penultimate round of the EUROCUP-3 championship here at Jerez. As looking at tomorrow, will there be a new champion? Will there be a new race winner? We'll have to see what happens when the checkered flag flies tomorrow for the final race here at Jerez.